Uh,
Before I forget that.
oh yeah, yeah.
Tomorrow we're doing a Space 19, well, for that podcast, but I didn't,
Uh-huh.
have you seen Into Infinity? I didn't know that existed until
No.
that's the special produced between the two seasons of Space 1999. It has Nick Tate, it has Brian Blessed in it, and
Wait, what?
it's supposed to teach you. It's called The Day After Tomorrow Into Infinity from
Huh.
75. So it
Oh my.
reuses some of the Space 1999 sets, but it's supposed to be a realistic-ish space journey that teaches people about Einstein's theories.
How cool.
So they're passing
Wow.
Pluto, and
Uh-huh.
it's like, oh, it's blue now because of the speed we're moving. I'm like, come on, that's Neptune or Uranus. But whatever, they say it's Pluto, and then they pass it and it's red, that sort of stuff. And a little bit of a Lost in Space premise. Nick Tate's very good in it. You don't get all the blessed you want, especially since the next week for the podcast is the Metamorph.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. There we
Compared to the
go.
Metamorph, he's nothing in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean, it's
that's
always nice to see
wild,
him on
man.
screen, but yeah.
That's
Um,
wild.
but let me start.
Um, I was going to say when you get to the very end, about the lost message from Alpha, right? That was on the DVD
Mm-mm-mm.
set. Yeah, okay. You got to cover that.
Oh, that's
You know,
for sure getting covered, yes.
yeah.
Because Brian said he was at the September 13th, 1999 con where they showed that for the first time.
Oh, sweet. Oh,
So
that's
they're like,
awesome.
we have to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, how cool.
And I haven't. It's probably been. It's been a few years since I watched it. It's not like the one you just throw on unless you're already got that
No,
DVD in the
no,
cooker,
exactly.
or yeah, I guess you
Exactly.
YouTube it from time to time.
Sure.
Um, Let me put the prologue on the board because I don't know if you
Yeah.
ever use Zoom whiteboards, but they changed it, and then for a while you could set
Mm.
it back to the old one, but now they've
Oh, okay.
changed it again.
Oh,
So you're
interesting. And
stuck
I
with.
I just downloaded the new Zoom update when we were signing on here. So let's see what happens. Hey, do you want
Yeah.
me to record a local
It
or
it
record
it
a backup of this?
it never hurts. I'll give you permission
Yeah.
for that. Hold on.
Okay.
So far I haven't lost anything, but allowed to record. Here we go. If the button works. Okay.
There we
I've
go.
now done about 10 podcasts on this new computer, so
Got
at
it.
least I know it
Yeah.
shouldn't do anything untoward.
I just had a thing with Larry this morning. And I've only done 260 shows with Larry. So, you don't expect them all to go perfectly, right? Uh but we signed on today and he is in the middle of moving, so that's kind of a challenge on top of our normal challenges. But I said, okay, you ready to record? Yeah, he's ready to record. So he did. And, we record a local on QuickTime and I edit the shows with our individual QuickTime files. Well, he was neither using a mic nor using earphones, and I didn't notice that there were no earphones. So when he sent me his local recording, it was him with me coming through his computer speakers into the room. And I texted him
Echo.
back and I was like, Larry, thank you for the local, but it is not local and I can't edit it, you know? So thankfully, we had my master Zoom recording. I ran that through Adobe AI Enhance, which is certainly light years beyond what we would have been able to do, even just a few years ago, but it still leaves a lot to be desired. So I will get a show out tomorrow. Long story short, I will get a show out tomorrow on time, but I'm not too thrilled with it.
I've only failed to record two podcasts. Unfortunately, both of
Yeah.
them were with the same person.
Oh no! Holy shit! Oh,
Well,
that's
the,
no
the
good.
first time it was a sci-fi sanctuary. Actually, Luke and I, this was back in Skype days where you had to like use
Oh God,
Audacity
I
and stuff to get
hated
everybody.
recording with Skype. Hated it.
So we
Yeah.
actually put that one out because our voices were there. So I just did this bizarre edit where it's like we don't have a guest, even though there was a guest there talking to us. And there's a few statements that sound like kind of bizarre, because of that. And then the
Oh
other time I just straight up
man.
failed to record it. Oops.
Wow.
But
Yeah, boy, the days of recording with Skype, that sucked so much. And yeah, Glad we're not doing that
I
anymore.
think I'm finally out of crackle mic. I'm just like trying to figure out how far or close I should be to this mic. So
Yeah. Oh, right.
uh,
Yeah. There you
I'm
go.
I'm just not stuck holding a microphone anymore. So that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I guess we can bop on into this guy then and
Yeah. Yeah.
see how the image goes. I'm just watching these hour longs for the first time. I think the only one I'd seen previously is the parallel. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
this one is a new world.
Nice. Nice.
Hello, welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we delve into all of the episodes of The Twilight Zone and beyond. It's season 4 now. It's extra length. Thanks for waiting for a few weeks before we got to season 4, but we are here. This is Matt here as always. Coming back for the first extra long episode from Mission Log. John Champion is back. Hello.
Hey, hello, and thank you for having me back. Glad to do the extra full length Twilight Zone with you. How many of these did it? Was it the whole season?
18 episodes of an hour long. That's right.
Okay. Wow. Wow. That's
So
pretty impressive. Yeah. I had forgot. Look, I hate to jump the gun, but now I'm just kind of, firing stream of consciousness here. I didn't expect it to be an hour long and did not realize it was the first episode with the iconic opening graphics.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although we're in season 4 now, and I'm just gonna lay it on the table. Of
Mhm.
course, the traditional Twilight Zone theme is iconic. It's fantastic. I think I like the season 1 Bernard Herrmann theme better in the end.
Oh, it's awfully good. It's awfully good.
I think it's a
Yeah.
better tone setting for the show.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I mean, but look, here's what's cool. It's shows that changed a theme or changed titles or whatever abruptly in the middle of its run. I think for fans, like we can appreciate all of it, and I like it's sort of like going back to say Lost in Space. Remember when they had a very dramatic opening titles and opening music change. Your other show, 1999, very abrupt, which I think is some of the finest opening titles of any series ever made. Is their season 1, hands down. But I like that there are changes like that we get to track over time. And I don't mind if, like, for the Twilight Zone, it's the season 4 and beyond stuff that is the most well known and people just kind of associate it with that. Because then you get to point out, like, hey, there's this whole other thing waiting for you to discover, like the Bernard Herrmann opening music, It's like
Yeah,
this whole other world to discover.
this sequence did give us that extra room in the Orlando Tower of Terror, of course, where it has all the
Yeah, right.
season 4 opening imagery that you pass through. Because I believe California did not have that.
No. Well, let's see that there were there right. You're talking about after you get in the
It like
ride
in
car.
Orlando, you move forward
You
through a
move
set
forward, yeah,
room.
yeah, and you
Yeah,
go through that stuff. Yeah, it's been a long time since I was on that ride, but we did not have that here in California, and that is a damn shame.
right. Of course,
Yeah.
you got Guardians, so you get something.
And it's very good and it's a lot of fun, but I will always miss my Twilight Zone, and I will always make the case that Twilight Zone was an iconic thing that belonged in its old Hollywood setting. Now, Disney California Adventure has the most aggressively ugly building they have ever built by reskinning that ride as Guardians of the Galaxy. The ride itself, total blast. Like you were just smiling from beginning to end on that ride. But I will always champion Twilight Zone.
This is a 5-timer award for this podcast, probably. But have we talked about the
Oh,
Japanese Tower of Terror? Um,
no, we
no
haven't.
Twilight Zone because Twilight Zone was never a big thing in Japan. So it has its own
Interesting.
original theming based on this billionaire who went out, like taking like indigenous people's like possession, like sacred
Whoa.
possessions. So when you go in, there's very serious like we are a historical preservation society for this guy's house.
Yeah,
They're all very
yeah.
serious. You look on the wall, it shows him and his manservant like running away from like natives and things. There's marble statues in the garden of like very very well-endowed women because of this guy. So
Yeah.
everything about it says he's a horrible scumbag, but it's being presented as if, this is a
Right, right.
luminary and
Super important. Yeah.
yeah,
See I think that's super cool that they wrote their own story to go along with that. And maybe at the time, I don't know if they just didn't have the rights. It could have been a rights issue getting it over there too. But I'm surprised that it wasn't as well known because I always felt one of the strengths of the Twilight Zone. It's kind of like with Star Trek just being a part of the popular culture. Even somebody who has never ever seen an episode of Star Trek likely knows the phrase "beam me up, Scotty," or they understand that a cell phone looks like a thing from this old science fiction show called Star Trek. And I feel like phrases like the Twilight Zone, imagery of Rod Serling popping in to describe the weird nightmarish thing that's about to happen to you, or that iconic music. I just feel like that's part of the pop culture anyway. And, a newspaper article will describe something weird as being from the Twilight Zone. And even if you've never seen the show, you know what that means.
but not
So
in
I,
Japan, which is
but not in
interesting.
Japan, I guess. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
like I
That's
told you before we started
uh,
recording, my daughter is currently trying to pitch Kelvin versus Star Trek to her junior high school class. So I'll
yeah, yeah.
get back
I
to everyone how that goes.
cannot wait to hear about that. Yeah,
I obviously do need to get to in his image, but I was just gonna
yeah.
one more the one unforgivable opening credit switch for me
Hmm.
is Red Dwarf, where I love those first two
Oh,
series so much. It's because the first time I saw it,
yeah,
I was like 12 years old. It's like 11 at night on PBS. I'm like, what the
yeah.
hell is this? And it seemed so serious. And then the show that followed was so like entertainingly stupid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, okay, look, I'll throw one more at you, and that's the change from season one Buck Rogers to season two Buck Rogers. I mean, they screwed the show every possible way that they could, and one of those ways was changing the opening credits with that great opening narration that Robert Conrad did
Yeah.
originally, I believe. And it was so good. Or was it Richard Basehart? No, Richard Basehart did Knight Rider, but so good. And then even just the new voice and the new edit and everything in season two just set the tone, and you knew right away like this is not going to be good.
Not a fan of Hawk there.
Well, you know what, I think Tom Christopher, I think he's a good person and a good actor. Luna, of course, Barbara Luna, fantastic. um it was an unfortunate show by season two.
I'll admit I
Some
have the
standout moments,
yeah,
some good
I
moments,
have the DVD set and I don't know if I've ever put on a season two.
I don't think I have either. No, no, I watched season one over and over again, but season two is just not good. Yeah.
Let me dish out a bit of trivia on In His Image, and we'll get to the main event. Although I guess
Yeah.
this is a good time to talk a little bit about opening sequences, isn't
Sure.
it?
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
For this one, original air date was January 3rd, 1963. Script is by regular contributor Charles Beaumont. It
Hmm.
is based off of an early short story that he wrote. I wrote earlier than this episode, obviously. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't date
right.
it. Sorry. Perry Lafferty directed. Mash, Maud, Mary Tyler Moore. He also directs next week's episode, and I say some of this stuff again, which I've already said because I don't always record these in order. Well, for that behind the scenes.
Hmm.
George Grizzard played Alan Talbot and Walter Ryder. We've already seen him getting amorous in The Chaser. He also had a storied Tony-winning career on the stage, and you'll find him in films such as Advise and Consent, From the Terrace with Paul Newman, and Comes a Horseman with Jane Fonda.
Hmm.
Jessica Connelly was played by Gail Kobe. Although Kobe, I don't know, because
Yeah,
I
I
live in
wasn't sure.
Japan.
Kobe. Yeah.
Since I'm sitting in the middle of Japan, I'm going to say Kobe.
Okay.
She previously appeared in A World of Difference, and she'll be back in season 5. She made all the TV guest spot rounds in the 60s. Basically, you name it, it's there. And would later become a producer, specializing in soap operas like The Bold and the Beautiful, and here it comes, The Guiding Light.
Yes.
The evangelical old woman in the subway was Catherine Squire. She also spent a lot of time on Broadway, but we have previously seen her in The Zone and One More Pallbearer. She also showed up 3 times on Perry Mason and played Dr. Kildare's mom on that show. James CA was the sheriff. Wiki listed him as a specialist in minor supporting roles, and then I lost most of my interest in learning more. I just saw a lot of minor supporting roles, so they were not lying. I mean, this one's kind of a weird episode to do because it is kind of a two-hander, and then there's a
Uh-huh.
couple people that get like a scene,
Yeah. Yep.
and a
For
one-hander
sure.
once when we get to the last 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. 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 And those people who get a scene, it's like it's important, and it's so important you think that they'll play along. Like, oh no, no, he just killed that old lady. Okay, guess we're not going to see her again. You know?
Well, that's not what Rod says after he kills that old lady, I suppose. Let's see what Rod says as I'm playing with this new
Uh-huh.
Zoom board.
All right.
It's coming your way, I think.
Okay.
Now, there
Here
it
we go.
is.
There we go. Oh wait, I have to get rid of these little flags here in front of it. Now I can see it. Here we go. Are you ready?
Let's go.
What you have just witnessed could be the end of a particularly terrifying nightmare. It isn't. It's the beginning. Although Alan Talbot doesn't know it, he's about to enter a strange new world, too incredible to be real, too real to be a dream. It's called the Twilight Zone.
All right. You got blessed with one that wasn't like an entire book long.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually Mark gets those and then he proceeds to do them in the most bizarre voice he can. So
Uh, I
um,
love the phrasing in that opening narration. I think it's a very good one. And I do you know much about what Serling would have done with a script like this? Because I'm a fan of Charles Beaumont. I did not realize exactly how many. I had to look it up. He wrote 22 Twilight Zone episodes. And I wonder how much of his stuff got kind of molded by Rod Serling, or were these the kind of scripts that would come in and Serling would just go like, oh, yeah, that's ready to go because Charles Beaumont was kind of a genius.
yeah, this is kind of the part of the show where it's really hard to tell how much Serling's involved. We're seeing him a lot more. I don't. I think he might have been on set in this one, but in the next episode, he's clearly, just filming a bumper at another time
Right.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
Twilight Zone was canceled after season 3. Producer Buck Houghton is gone.
Yeah.
This is kind of a weird mid-season cobbled replacement that has to be an hour because the show that replaced Twilight Zone was an hour. So um,
Uh-huh.
the production team of Twilight Zone was apparently not really keen on doing hour-long shows. That's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
Rod is at this point in New York, probably 80% of the time or more teaching or doing lectures. So
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I do wonder if this is a case where the script has actually probably been less touched because there's new cooks in the kitchen that just got, too energetic about it. So
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Or, was this written for the half hour format and stretched out? Because there are moments that I feel like, okay, we're stretching. But then I also feel like you go back and rewatch it, and some of those moments that feel like stretching really do add layers to the story. So it is very well crafted, even if, well, I don't know, I don't want to spoil what we're going to get to here with our final assessments, but let's just say that it is a two-edged sword to have that hour to play with. And I think for the most part, Twilight Zone fits best as a half an hour, but there are good things to discover within an hour long episode.
yeah, I think especially some of the early episodes, they were 30-minute scripts stretched to an hour.
Mhm.
Next week, this week, I'm like, yeah, it plays pretty well. I didn't mind watching this for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Next week, we're like, they're pulling some of this like taffy. They could have easily done this in a cool 25, with
Yeah.
without commercials, I should say. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this one holds together structurally better because it's most of the extra time, like you said, it's kind of like atmospherics, like
Hmm.
really spending time like in the town, like what exactly is going on here. That takes 20 minutes, I think, where
Right.
traditionally that would take
Yeah.
5 minutes in the Twilight Zone.
Right. Right.
Or that would
Exactly.
be, there'd just be a stinger at the end of all that, and that's the episode. We don't have the final sequence.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Although I guess if we are going to look up front, at the beginning with the old lady
Hmm.
that we thought was going to be more important and then is summarily murdered. Uh, I definitely like you're from Birmingham. I'm from Atlanta.
Yeah.
How many evangelicals have you been accosted by?
Yeah, you know what? In a lot of cities too, in Birmingham, in New York, where I lived for a long time, in Chicago, maybe in Chicago less so, but pretty much everywhere. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I have encountered them.
my height, I guess, would be Athens, Georgia. Going to university there, and you get licenses to hang out on corners. But
Ooh, oh, hey, I mean, try coming to Comic-Con here some year, and that's like a whole thing. I mean, yeah, and then you
here's the
have people
important
then
question,
you have
though.
people cosplaying them,
Ah,
which is fun. Yeah, yeah,
okay. Here's the important thing because it was late '90s when I was in school, so I
yeah.
did get handed a lot of the chick tracks, which
Dude, seriously, I kid you not. All right, I try to pick those up wherever I can, and I remember keeping some from New York from when I was in college here in the early '90s. And then just the other day, like literally 2 nights ago, I got home. There's a thing stuck in my door between the door and the door frame, and it wasn't a chick tract. I mean, those are special, but it was a kind of chick tract. Yeah.
yeah, just in my mind when she hands him the brochure, I was like, I want that to be a chick track so bad, no, knowing it's not because it's 1963.
Yeah.
Although if you look it up, Jack Chick tracks, you can actually read them all online, which is fun.
Oh, excellent. That's awesome.
My favorite is
Wow.
the rock and roll one, of course. I think it's the Blue Angels or something, yeah. Which includes them on stage singing with the lyrics, "We're gonna rock, 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 rock with the rock."
Yeah, that's just clearly ripped from, modern music
Yeah.
of the time. Yeah.
And
Um
their manager Lou Cipher, as think about for a while if you want. One of my favorite lines ever is, "I'll give you a wedding present, some AIDS."
Whoa. Oh my God. Wow. See, I kept one that I remember keeping from New York because this was kind of near the height of Seinfeld's presence in the pop culture. So they would do, they did a themed chick tract, but they had to change things just enough. So you had these cartoon characters of the cast of Seinfeld, but it was Jerry Steinface, not Seinfeld, and then it was his time in New York, and somehow they tied that into, well, you better follow Jesus, like I can't remember exactly how they tied it in, but I was like, well, this is just too good not to keep. Yeah.
Anyway, effective acting there because I felt like talking about it for a few minutes.
Yeah, no, it's a good scene, and it raises the intensity right away for the beginning of the episode. And it's one of those moments where I was just like, wow, this is the top of the episode, and we're really going there. Like, there's no ambiguity at all about what's happening. It just happens, and that is the launching point for the episode. So that is it was bold. Bold now and bold for 1963, I'm sure.
Then we meet his lady friend, I guess, played by Kobe. I'm gonna hang on Kobe. So,
All right.
and what did we see? I said in the trivia what we saw her in before, I think, but
Let's
read
see.
my
Known for
trivia. World of Difference. You were
she
here.
oh, but wait a minute. She was in the Ten Commandments, credited as Pretty Slave Girl,
Ah,
and I love Ten Commandments is my favorite biblical epic. As I remember, there are a lot of pretty slave girls in that movie,
oh,
but
cast of thousands.
yeah, yeah,
But that was another one because they're insinuating that they're 25, and I'm like, they're not. And she's past 20 and still unmarried at and
yeah.
apparently 25. I did look at the
Right.
age. This is another Twilight Zone thing. I was like, how are they really? Because what they say, I'd be 45. It's 20 years in the future.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
he was about 35 and she was about 30, as far as the actors were concerned. So I'm like, why can't
He
they just be those ages?
Yeah, well, and what's strange is that he plays 35. Like if you just see him and you go, how old is this actor? Like I think his range as an actor at that time, I would say like 30 to 40. Like that would be a very narrow age range for him. Um And then trying to do the math in my head about how old, sorry to jump ahead, but how old is Walter? And judging by the gravestones of his parents, if we're supposed to assume that he's 45, that almost seems a little young for Walter. Like Walter seems like he's supposed to be about 55. Um, and how that wouldn't tip off the girlfriend like, oh, this is a totally different person. But I get ahead.
Well, we
Sorry.
can get ahead a bit there. I mean,
Okay,
I assume people have usually watched the show, and from what I get,
sure.
the guy Alan who we're following does not have like Walter's memory engrams or whatever, like directly. He's gotten like he says bits and pieces. So
Yeah, yeah.
so it Walter could actually be 35, and he's taken things from when he was a teenager, extrapolating them a different way, and yeah, it seems like basically he made a soup in this guy's head, which had a bit of
Right,
poison in it, as
right.
he keeps murdering people for no reason.
That's all right. So that gets right to, for me, the big mystery of this episode, which is okay, I can understand thematically. This is a Frankenstein story. You know, it just, I think at its heart, this is a Frankenstein story. And that opening scene with the old woman in the subway, it kind of points to the problem with Walter's experience is that, and you know that I'm not a supernatural believer, I'm not a religious believer, but I think there's something very interesting here about the idea of creation and man's fallibility, using man in the broadest sense of the word, say humankind's fallibility with the act of creation, that anything that we create will be, in that old woman's words, quoting Leviticus, unclean. So no matter what Walter does, his creation will be impure, unclean, imperfect in some way. The extent to which they take that, where the gears and circuits firing off in his robot brain just make him randomly want to kill, that's weird and disturbing. And it doesn't seem like Walter is the kind of person who would just randomly want to murder. So it's strange that that's just a thing that Alan picks up.
Yeah, that's kind of what I like. I mean, you don't have to take it supernatural at all. It's a Walter
Hmm.
is a obviously a pretty good inventor engineer. He's not
Hmm.
the best, you know? I mean, well,
Yeah.
he might be the best, but the best is still going to make stupid mistakes. So,
Right, right, right. By the way, I'm very disappointed that at no point in this episode did anybody say the word robot when referring to Alan or the multiple, you know, units that came before him.
where I think I got to writing that in my notes very quickly.
Yeah?
Robot.
Yeah.
Where was it? I know I typed it in ROBUT on
Yeah,
purpose.
okay,
So.
wait, so it got said. I must have missed it then. Damn, because I was really, as soon as we saw that reveal with his wrist flesh torn away, I was like, somebody's gonna say robot.
Oh no, that was me typing it. Didn't say it.
Oh, it was you
Oh,
typing it. Okay.
I wrote is robot arm bad
Yeah.
ROBUT. Okay, so no, that was just me. That was just me. And then my
Okay.
Blu-ray actually made me watch the station identification. Because usually you're
Okay.
watching on Blu-ray, it's like, and now for our station identification, it's okay, we're gonna go back to the
Yeah.
show. Nope, I had to sit there and watch the CBS bumper,
Oh, well,
which
okay.
is fine.
Okay.
But it was
Yeah.
just kind of funny. I'm like, hey, wait a
Yeah.
minute, this is my Blu-ray. Why is it doing that? One thing that I kind of well, two things that were maybe personally observations for me is
Hmm.
I guess the Rip Van Winkling and him getting I haven't been home for 15 years, so I'm totally going to get this experience. Although I won't think that I was here like 2 weeks ago in that case,
You're right.
I'll know it's
Right.
been a long time, but I will definitely have to see the old town in this kind of a lens.
Right. But it is interesting because it kind of indicates that, yes, Walter put in memories into Alan, but Walter also changed that narrative a bit
Right.
because, yeah, there are things that are just patently incorrect. And I think he was just creating this kind of like, well, it's based on me, but it's not really me. That's why he has a totally different name. That's why he's Alan Talbot and not Walter Bot 2.0.
That'd be
So
a
we're
cool
gonna
name.
give him, what's that?
That'd be a cool name. I want
That
that
would be
name.
a cool name, right? Yeah. But that's why we're gonna give him manufactured memories that are loosely based on a story lived by Walter Ryder, but it will never be quite correct. And that then would cause, no matter what, a deep seated unease for that artificial intelligence that he just unleashed into the world.
Well, I mean, yeah, he says, and actually, I thought this was one of the cooler concepts in a 1963 bit of TV sci-fi where he's like,
Mhm.
yeah, Aunt Mildred's like a amalgamation of like several old ladies I knew, nice old ladies I
Yeah,
knew. There is no
yeah,
Aunt Mildred, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I thought that was very cool, but it also, it's like he's automatically creating a problem for himself by 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 faking these memories, because you have to assume that if you put those things there and there is enough of a human-ish drive or a desire to be connected to other people, to be connected to family, like he will try to go find those things in one way or another, and he will be very disappointed and experience the existential crisis that we witness in the episode by not finding them or by finding them to be completely fake.
Now, I guess the thing that my unwilling suspension of disbelief in this episode is not that stuff, which maybe it should be, but it's that they're apparently gonna get married and they've known each other a week. He's been alive for a week.
That's a very 19, I'd say 30s, 40s, 50s kind of thing where you introduce the romantic couple and they've only known each other for a few days or maybe even a few hours, depending on the movie that you're watching, and then they've decided to get married. But I thought that was an interesting kind of dualism about Alan, which is what Walter got right in the programming versus what he got wrong in the programming. And the thing that Walter wants is he wants the better version of himself. And this version of himself is younger, more energetic, and more successful in dating and falling in love than he
Well, he's
is.
more personable, isn't he?
Yeah,
I did write it's
yeah.
still a better love story than Twilight, which I just watched
Fair.
for this
Oh my
podcast
God.
and we talked about last week for April Fools.
Mm, mm.
After 3 years of every time I do a search for Twilight Zone stuff, the auto guesses are always
Yeah,
the Twilight
yeah.
Saga.
Oh my
So see,
God.
and so Google
Wow.
led us astray, and that was our April Fool's episode last week. Well,
Nice.
Twilight Forbidden Zone for the whole thing, but
Nice. That's hilarious.
what else do we have here? Oh yeah, when he's stuck, it might seem weird that he's just stuck in the forest at midnight, but I like that. I took a midnight walk, 20-kilometer midnight walk in the jungle a few months ago.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow. That's pretty
Listen,
cool.
you might have been on that trip. I was listening to podcasts till my phone
Hey,
battery
cool.
finally ran out.
Oh, right on. Right on. I'm glad you made it back
No,
safe.
it was
Yeah.
well, we were at a resort for the company
Okay.
trip, and we were at like this izakaya, like 20 kilometers away. And I stood up before we started. I said, before I've had anything to drink, I'm probably walking home because I want to,
Oh
and I did.
God.
But yeah, yeah. So I was like, oh, I want to hang out there at midnight. But
Yeah.
my Simpsons reference, I just kept writing "urge to kill rising." You know, I mean that's kind of how that's how it
Yeah.
plays in that Shining Simpsons episode. Basically, I felt like
Yeah.
Alan's almost doing the same thing. He's a little nicer that they tells people to run away from him, but
He does. Yeah. But and then you have to wonder, like, if this did not play out the way that it did in the story, does he try to go get psychoanalysis? Like, is that normal? Why do I feel like I just want to kill the people who are around me? And by the way, I killed this innocent old woman, by throwing her at a subway train.
well, the new Alan might. I mean, his girlfriend is
Hmm.
like, I'm taking to a doctor tomorrow, so apparently that's still on.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be good.
But I thought that was kind of the best scene of the show, actually, that last scene, because they don't say anything. And she was like, like embraced at the end. But there's several moments where it's very clear in her eyes that she's like, this isn't the same guy.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
thought that was great because a lot of media would have her say something about it, but she just like, what am I? I guess I'm going to go along with this.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
She
Yeah.
might know
Well,
this robot for decades. She only knew the other guy for a week.
right. Well, I think that's what is so interesting here is that, okay, the twist in the classic Twilight Zone style come because you've got an hour. The twist comes early, just revealing that Alan is manufactured. But the next twist and the thing that kept me hanging on at the end was okay, we have this fight scene. We have again, this Frankenstein story of the creator and the creation fighting each other, literally beating the crap out of each other in this lab,
Sparks
right?
coming from places they didn't touch.
Yeah, exactly. The way it should be. By the way, some nice reuse of
Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet props. Yeah, yeah, very good. Um, but then you don't know. You don't know who won.
It looked like they were
And
both dead.
it did. It kind of did.
I
Yeah,
kind of
but
assumed one of the B4s got up and this is the new guy now.
wow, yeah. Oh, see, that would be cool. I love that there was some genuine suspense there. Like what happened at the end here, and then who is going to show up at Gail's doorstep? Or Jessica's the character, rather Gail
Yes, yes.
Cody, the actress. Yeah,
Jess. Yeah.
yeah.
I wrote somewhere, I hope Jess is into metal. Okay.
Nice.
So have you ever seen your own doppelganger? I think well, I must have brought this up during Mirror Image, but have you had a doppelganger experience?
Um, in person, no, but there are two. Well, the one kind of doppelganger thing. There was an image that got passed around a few years ago of a guy, and it's like a late 50s, early 60s, and he's some dude wearing dark pants and like a light gray jacket. He's got a tie on. I think he's wearing roller skates, and he's got like a jetpack. And it was some like just goofy late 50s sci-fi inspired invention. But that guy looked like me, particularly before I had a beard. It was just like, wow, if you transported me back 70 years or 60 years, like that would be me. Um, and then the other one is that for years and years and years, I kept getting told that I looked like Thomas Lennon, you know, Lieutenant Dangle from Reno 911, actor from The State. And I got told that all the time. And there was a woman that I met one time. We were talking, and she goes, "You look like somebody kind of well known. I don't know if you know who he is." And I was like, "You know what? I get it a lot that I resemble Tom Lennon." She goes, "Oh, you do know who he is?" Yeah, I do. She goes, "I used to date Thomas Lennon." So the fact that somebody who dated him thought that I looked like him, I was like, okay, well, then I guess we can never meet. I guess Tom Lennon and I can never be in the same room together.
Time cop rules.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
No, mine is in the wild. I remember at 13 or 14, probably 14 years old, being at the
Mm.
Philmont Scout Reservation in New Mexico and looking into the cafeteria and seeing a kid that looked exactly like me eating a ham. I don't think he saw me, but I was like, that's weird.
Wow.
It's
Wow. If
weird.
only you could go back and meet that kid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I didn't know. I didn't want to again. I
Oh,
did
all
tell
right.
that 93 or so. That's when Time Cop came out. That was fresh
Yeah.
on the mind.
There you go. Tear apart the space-time continuum. Yep.
But yeah, you mentioned the twist. The first twist comes so early. That does
Hmm.
something that the Twilight. That's maybe where the hour is a good thing
Yeah.
because usually it's the twist, bang. There's a little denouement. I'm sorry, I'm saying the word wrong, but and then we're finished. Whereas here we have basically a
Hmm.
10-minute philosophical conversation, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I guess the obsolete man has that all in the middle and then the twist, but so it's not like the
Right.
Twilight Zone hasn't gotten this thoughtful, but I don't think it's gotten that thoughtful about the twist, unless the twist was just like straight up front, like it's a good life, you know?
Sure. Yeah. 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 They make good use of that time, and I have to say that the effects of Walter and Alan being in the same room are really well done. Fight scene is a little bit more difficult because there's a lot of other stuff going on and there's a lot more movement. But just those static split screen shots I thought were really effective. Like on a low budget, poorly made show, those stick out like a sore thumb. But here, they're really polished and really fluid, going from those shots to then the you always have to have the shot that's like the over the shoulder, or you cut to somebody, I think he hands him a drink at some point. You have to cut to those and not make it look awkward and then come back to the split screen, but they were just really well directed.
And I was watching the Blu-ray last night. I was like looking closely at the split screen to find the seams, and I mean I
Yeah.
could tell where it was, but it was good split.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
pretty
you
good
know
split
where it
screen at the
is,
time.
but it's just really artistically handled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's other, others like 60 sitcoms where they do it and it just looks ridiculously like
Yeah.
two different things. But I was like, they did a pretty good job with the film process effect or whatever in this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing that scene kind of made me think of, and also this is because I recently watched the movie again, but the opening scene in Blade Runner where they're doing the test and
Yeah.
the replicant straight up murders the guy at the end. I mean, they're not,
Yeah.
they don't look the same in that, but it's kind of the same trajectory, like making you question your memories because they're implanted, and then the replicant or android or whatever murders you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Which I watched that so I could start watching 2049, but I've only done 20 minutes of that so far. Oops.
Oh well. Yeah. You'll get
Eh,
to it.
I had to
You'll get
watch
to it.
these. I had to watch Twilight and the Twilight Zone. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Poor thing.
I think we're gonna get a bit more into the philosophy with the questions. But if you do have a big observation you want to throw out, otherwise, leave you the floor for that.
No, no. I mean, I think I hit the major observations. Y- yeah, yeah, because I think we need to get philosophical here for a minute. So why not?
Okay, let's see if I have any dumb notes. Love Valley is where you spark the girlies with the human electrode. Okay, and I think I just heard several things all at once and wrote them together because they sounded bad, which they do. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't be perfect if you can't down a scotch. Okay.
Hmm. Yep.
Oh, and I assumed he stole the hotel's Gideon Bible because the evangelist had at least that much effect on him.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
But
I do like the yeah. There's a couple of details I guess to point out. It's great that only in a TV show can you go from one town to another, see a name that actually doesn't mean anything to you. Because remember, Alan Talbot is looking for the grave markers for the Talbots, but what he finds is Ryder. Lucky for him, he gets back into town and finds Walter Ryder Jr. in the phone book. Not only does he get that address, but he goes up to the house and there is a nameplate on the door, Walter Ryder Jr. So he knows that he's in the right place. That is the kind of thing that only happens in a TV show for sure.
hey, my name's
Um,
on the front of my house. Uh,
really?
well,
Yeah, but
it has the kanji for my wife's family. Then because Amazon or delivery people are getting confused, they put my name
yeah.
under it. They're like,
Okay, but are you listed in the phone book?
oh, I'm not a real person then. That's
Uh-huh.
according to Steve Martin. Okay. Do we have
Exactly.
a phone
Exactly.
book? I don't even
Be
know.
somebody. Be in the phone book. Um, the other thing that I think is cool is that it, at this point in 1963, even from our perspective now of 60 years later, robots or robots are not really that old of a concept. Like it's still pretty new. RUR, Kyle Chopek's book that first used the word robot, and they were a different thing. They were not originally conceived as mechanical, but that's kind of the origin point in the early
I
20s,
was going to say
late,
1920s.
yeah, yeah, late,
1927 stuck in my head, but that might be because of Metropolis.
yeah. I think it was like 23 or
Yeah, I
something
would
like that.
assume it's a few years before Metropolis.
Yeah, right, right. So it's a pretty early idea. Fast forward to 1963, and in Charles Beaumont's imagination, in Rod Serling's imagination, and then certainly to convey this to the TV audience, like it is an acceptable thing for their suspension of disbelief that you have robots that perfectly resemble human beings that are yeah, you just peel back the skin and it's just some circuits, some pulleys, some gears, some transistors, whatever that need to be in there to make this. Only a few years before, people went to the World's Fair in 1939. The giant robotic, I mean, he was huge. He was like 8.5 feet tall, just big strips of sheet metal kind of hammered out to make the shape of a humanoid, and it was powered by a record player, literally just to give the voice response to the operator. Uh, but then you go from that to 1963 Twilight Zone, and there is the assumption like the audience will get this. The audience will understand the idea, like the very concept of a human being making a robot that is indistinguishable from a human being. And that is a weird, huge leap to make because it still is a pervasive idea in science fiction. You even go up to Star Trek: The Next Generation, and you spend 7 seasons, a good portion of that trying to figure out like what is Data and does he have rights, and how did we get here? And this is such a weird, rare, unique thing that we have to figure out how we treat this other life form. Meanwhile, here you are, it's some dude who's just kind of bored with his life, decides to make this in his basement. So I think conceptually, this is just a really interesting piece.
I may have mentioned this one to you before, but I
Mhm.
know I mentioned it to somebody recently, which and I've done a podcast on in the past, which is 1960s creation of the humanoids, which
Oh
is
yeah,
very
yeah,
very low budgets, basically like 3 scenes on nice sets, but
yeah.
extremely well written within those parameters,
Hmm.
and with like all the concepts you're bringing up were really explored in that 1960, like even a few
Yeah,
years before this,
yeah, yeah.
and the tracks through all the way to Blade Runner, the Battlestar reboot, that sort of stuff.
Right, right, exactly.
Well, let's toss a few questions on this. Who in this
Mhm.
episode goes into the Twilight Zone?
Okay, well, the old woman is not around long enough to go into the Twilight Zone.
That's the Twilight Zone is death concept. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I think in order, Alan goes through the Twilight Zone, Walter goes through the Twilight Zone, and if we were to check in a few days or a week or a couple of weeks from now, Jessica is definitely going through the Twilight Zone as well.
I was gonna put Jessica actually as my number one for our Twilight Zone
Really?
person. Alan, very close second. The only reason
Yeah,
I'm saying second is now we have to have the is he sentient conversation.
yeah, right.
If he
Yeah.
is, sure, he went through a Twilight Zone for much stronger than Jess, but and I'm
Hmm.
I'm perfectly willing to say yes, he seemed sentient enough, but
Yeah,
how do you judge that? Um,
right.
Walter, I'm gonna say no. He built that thing. That's his fault.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. Walter goes through, in my estimation, I think he goes through the Twilight Zone in a couple of different ways. All right, one, he is this presumably this guy kind of living like a hermit, just working on his projects in the basement, and at some point he gets the model that actually works, right? So we see all the others laid out on the slabs, and they're not quite as good, but he made one that actually worked. And the creepy weird thing about that, the thing that kind of shakes up his whole perspective on his life, is that he made one that is better than him. So that sends his life presumably into a whole new tailspin where it's like, hey, this would be cool if I could make another me to go out there in the world and do stuff. Oh crap, then I did. And he doesn't know about the murders yet, but at least not really. But like, this is a bad thing that I have done. So there is his first step into the Twilight Zone. His next step into the Twilight Zone is that if indeed it is he who the original Walter Ryder Jr. who survived the lab fight, um, he gets to enter the Twilight Zone again, by assuming this life that his robotic creation kickstarted for him, which is a whole other weird place for him to be. Like now he has to live up to his own creation, which was imperfect to begin with.
So
So
he was
I
expecting more of a multiplicity situation where the
I think so.
seconds
I
become
think so.
worse
It
and
was just like,
worse.
oh, yeah, this is just a fun project. This is a thing that I can do, and they'll get some work done for me. But no, no, now Alan. Okay, what happens if it's Walter walking around out there and somebody from the what's the weird looking hotel that he leaves from the beginning, the
Oh, I even wrote
Chesterton
that down.
Charles
Chesterton. I
Chesterton
did write that
Hotel?
down.
Yeah. So somebody who sees Walter walking around goes, you know, he really resembles that guy who was leaving the train station after that old woman was killed. You so he's potentially got a lot to answer for.
Yeah, that was not a very careful murder. I'm sure you could probably,
No, no.
except a plastic man, committed it. So maybe he doesn't leave fingerprints since the DNA. Well, they wouldn't
Oh,
do DNA in 63 anyway, would they?
sure, sure. Yeah,
They were just
yeah.
taking acid and thinking about DNA then.
Right. Right,
But
right.
yeah, I guess that is like who you assume the guy is at the end. I don't know why. Maybe I was like overly twisting. I was like, oh, that's one of the other robots that seem to be turned off. Like,
Oh,
I
see,
don't. I don't
I
even
think
know why.
it's
I'm
Walter.
sitting here. Yeah, now that you're saying that, I'm like, why did I even assume that? But
Well, no, because I think they so cleverly left the end of that lab fight and then just let you sit there long enough not knowing who's showing up at Jessica's door. But when it opens and when we catch the face, to me, that is the older face and the older demeanor of Walter as opposed to that kind of younger, you know, spry
born
kind of
yesterday.
yeah, that kind of lift in his step that is Alan. And to me that's like the weird part of it. Okay, now he's got this other job to do, this other life to carve out for himself with a total stranger, by the way,
Well, he's
because
only a
he
week behind,
yeah yeah, but they're about to get married, you know.
and he's
Yeah,
been in his basement for the past decade or two.
right, right, yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess we will start with water then. Do they deserve their trip into the Twilight Zone? He's the one with the most
Ooh.
agency for sure. He's building stuff, even if he makes mistakes.
He is, and he's not very transparent about things. He is to Alan, but then, he kills him. So so what? I guess there's the murderous streak that Alan inherited from his creator. Does he deserve like I don't want there to be a happy ending for Walter.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I don't know if he
So he's not
deserves.
getting what he deserves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think he's not getting what he deserves. I think there needs to be something else that happens after this story to Walter. Um, Jessica, I feel bad for. I think she does not deserve this next step into the Twilight Zone. Um, Although good, Alan had the good sense to tell her to go away when the kill, kill, kill started showing up in his mind. And did Alan deserve? No, I don't think Alan deserved his fate. But then we do have the whole question about if he is sentient or not.
Yeah, in that case, it's like, oh, I deserve my creation. I'm a freak of science. Right back to Frankenstein.
Yeah, yeah.
Frankenstein. Hmm.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Alan, so Jess needs to have Elvis Presley sing "Only Fools Rush Into Her" at least. So she's
right,
at least that. Otherwise, she got a pretty short end of the stick. But yeah, Alan got the shortest end of the
yeah,
stick. Again, it really had me thinking about replicants and Blade Runner. Is he
yeah,
dead in 4 years if he just keeps going?
right,
They
right,
mention his skin.
exactly.
He's like, it's non-conductive plastic. I thought that was a weird thing to say. I was like, is any plastic conductive?
Right. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, it's just like, why am I living? So I feel the worst for Alan because I mean, he didn't seem like a bad guy or the guy he was programmed to be was.
Yeah.
fine. He didn't,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I
He,
mean,
he just
he didn't
he had a
even
lot of
flip
stuff to
out.
work out.
Yeah, he didn't flip out like Marty did in Walking Distance when his town wasn't what he expected. I mean,
Right.
he had some weird conversations, but he didn't start flipping out until he felt the urge to kill Rising, which makes sense. So,
Right.
and that's a glitch
Exactly.
in the system. It's not like he wants to kill anybody. He's
Yeah.
having this weird glitch,
Yeah.
which maybe is unfixable. So maybe he did have to be destroyed, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Or at
Interesting.
least he doesn't know how, or Ryder doesn't, Walter doesn't know how to fix it, might be the thing.
Yeah,
Because it
I
seemed like
think
he
that's definitely the case. Yeah.
kind of stumbled into this. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, let's tripometer it. Zero's not trippy, five's very trippy.
Yeah. This is like a hmm. If all we got was Alan is a robot or a robot, and that's the story, this would be like a solid 2.5 on the tripometer because it's just like, oh, okay, well, here's a being that doesn't know what he is and he got created and he didn't have any say in that process and all the problems that he's experiencing, those really fall on Walter's shoulders. But I think once we get past the point that he is a robot and uh, has a potential future relationship with Jess, and Walter is a kind of a weird hermit scientist who was creating things to either replace or expand his personality and now taking over for the things that he created. I think now it elevates it to like a 4.5 on the tripometer because I think there are so many unanswered things that are the next few scenes right after this that we just don't know. We gotta fill in some major blanks here.
Okay.
So yeah.
I think I was at your baseline 2.5 for it being robot. And I was adding
Hmm.
because if you're making me think of Blade Runner 1963, or you're doing something right. Um,
Yeah.
because there's not many visual things to really flip me out. Like, you know, the Forbidden Planet stuff's cool, but you know what? I've seen it 20 times on the Twilight Zone
Yeah,
already.
yeah,
So
exactly.
always nice
Yeah.
to see it. It's like, you know, like when you see that old regular one station, you know, in Star Trek, it's there it is again. Yay.
Right. Right.
So that
Right.
doesn't trip me out anymore. So the lab in season one, I might have been, man, that lab was trippy. I'm at season four now. I'm like, it's another Twilight Zone lab. But the
Yeah.
concepts for me push it to a 3.5. It would need something kind of visually wacky or like
Yeah.
weird editing or something for me to go higher. So
Well, this one's a slow burn. And we do to spend a lot of time like figuring out what is the mystery in the town? How does that relate to this guy? What's wrong with him? Yeah, in fact, I'm gonna wind mine back a little bit. You're gonna land at 3.5. I'm gonna wind mine back to a 4 because yeah, it's not trying to outpace you too much. I just think that I still I land at that last scene and just think like, what are we supposed to take away from this? How are we supposed to feel about these people now? That to me is the trippiest thing in the episode.
it did keep me
So,
guessing a little bit. Like, you know,
hmm.
I hadn't seen it before, so I wasn't quite sure where we were going. So when he's
Yeah.
in the car and, you know, talking to Water in his sleep, I was like, oh, is this going to be like a proto quantum leap thing, you know,
Oh,
like
interesting.
he's
Yeah.
communing with Al like while he's sleeping, you know, except it's Walter
Yeah.
now. So,
Right.
you know, I
Right.
that honestly, if that had been the twist in 1963, I might have pumped this up to a five, but
That would have been a pretty big deal.
they
Yeah.
didn't go that way, and they made a good episode. Didn't have to go there.
Right. Right. Yep.
Well, I guess we'll close this one down for today. Let me throw you the floor for what you do. It is April 8th.
Whoa. Okay.
You're in the
April
future.
8th. Yeah. April 8th is Star Trek Discovery premiere day for us for Mission Log Live. So that season 5 premieres on April 4th. So tonight, if you tune in at Facebook, we will have already been back 1 week. Right? They're going to do like a state of Star Trek, but then we will start in earnest on April 8th with our episode by episode live discussion show. If you happen to be around, of course, call in. I know you're working, but
I oversee you guys from on a train and try and send a snarky message. Not snarky.
yeah.
Don't send snarky messages
Oh,
there.
snark is good. Snark is fine. Snark is welcome. And we will be coming up on the end of season 4 of Voyager. I can't remember if one releases, I think maybe the week before, and then whichever one is the season finale. Is it Here and Now or something like that? So a 3-word title, which is rare for Voyager. But it'll be right around then, and then we'll do a couple of supplemental episodes, create a little break before we get to season 5. So all of that, all happening right around there.
And hey, if you're listening to this and you don't watch Star Trek Voyager, that's probably the most Twilight Zone-y of Star Treks.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, hey, I was just watching earlier today the episode that we will be recording tomorrow, which is 1. And that's the one where 7 of 9 is hallucinating through the whole episode. So it is a very Twilight Zone episode.
Urge to Kill Rising, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
As for us, Time Enough Podcast is part of the Podcastiest thing on Patreon. You could look for it there, get episodes of this early with a little extra blibber blabber. John, you also join us on occasion on some of the other podcasts, Films and Filth, where we talk about really good movies and really bad movies. Not looking at the list, I think you're coming up sometime before long for either Sunset Boulevard or Das Boot. I don't remember which one comes first.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. All right. Very cool.
And we already mentioned Podcast 1999, where we've been covering the episodes of Space 1999 and have just started doing season 2 of that, the different one. Yeah. If you're a gamer, there's Luke Loves Pokemon, Hyrule Field Report about Zelda games, and the Game Show, where you will not hear either of us except for maybe 2 episodes where I do show up on the Game Show. I'm not a gamer though. I'm usually there as kind of like a joke because I only know about like 80s video games.
Same. Yeah, I'm not a gamer. My knowledge of gaming pretty much ends where Super Nintendo begins.
Yeah,
So,
I play casual games on my iPad, and I assume that I'm winning them if I don't pay any money for them.
Right. That's it.
Would make a true gamer vomit in disgust. All right. Well, John, prepare to meet your maker.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent, man.
Do the cut there as always. Actually, we'll see.
Cool.
I didn't feel like pulling it out while I was in the middle of rambling, but high and low. Yeah, we've got plenty of time. Maybe I'll bug you sometime. Sunset Boulevard and the boat are actually pretty close, but we can space them out a little bit so no one's we're not going nutty. But yeah, sometime probably early April I'll send a message for your time would a Tuesday or Wednesday. For Films and Filth, it pretty much has to be Tuesday or Wednesday because of Luke.
Okay.
Luke's
Yeah,
schedule.
Wednesdays are usually pretty good. Yeah, around this time. Yeah, like after 3:30 my time.
Anyway,
so.
I don't have to nail you down the second, so I'll just DM you about all that. So.
All right. Cool, man. Well, this is fun as always.
Yeah. I was the 30 Fathom Grave we didn't love it. So it was nice getting to this one. Okay, this one has some like proper meat on it.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the 30 Fathom Grave?
I know that I've watched it, but I can't remember.
It's got the ghost crew in the corridors, if you remember that, and one of them looks like Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
I mean, there's cool stuff there, and they spent some money on it because they got the guy banging on a sub, so they had to have some kind of set for that.
Right. Yeah.
All the military. Well, they apparently shot on a ship because there's a few scenes where it's like a wooden door. I'm like, oh, that's got to be a set. But I'm doing the trivia. It's like the exterior shots were of this ship, and they filmed on the USS Edson, and you do see boats in the background that say Edson on them. So I'm like, okay, I guess battleships or destroyers have wooden doors. Didn't know that.
Wow.
Maybe the bridge. Oh, the one thing that did I did note about that episode though is you could change about three things and make it a TOS Star Trek episode.
Oh,
And it
interesting.
would
Yeah.
probably be better that way too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh
yeah.
I
There you
realized
go.
50 minutes, you're like, oh, this really feels like a TOS Star Trek, except instead of seeing nice primary colors pop on your screen, you're seeing
Right.
B grade naval films. You're
Right.
not watching Run Silent, Run Deep here.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, I will catch
Awesome, man.
you before too long. I'll hit the
Yeah.
record.